Hello and welcome to another live broadcast. I'm Macho, that's Savory, and you're watching us at Drinks with a Nobody on Nobody TV. Show them that transition there, Savory.
That's my sound effect. No.
All right.
Go ahead, brother.
All right, so today we are dividing our show into three different segments. We have Mind Yo Business, and we have Nobody versus the Experts, and we also have our last segment, Sipping on Some Facts. So right now, today, we want to get into that first one. We like to open up with that first one there, Savory, and that is...
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you for joining us again. Felicia, I know you were in my live. Appreciate the support. We're just getting the YouTube channel popping, so thanks for that intro, Macho. You know, we are in the house. Let's start with this Joy Reid. Let's kick this off. And again, our first segment is called what again, Macho?
It's called Mind Your Business.
Mind Your Business. So here we're going to play Joy Reid. She is sharing some thoughts on some relevant topics related to the Rittenhouse case, Ahmaud Arbery, but we're sharing this because we're talking about equality, racism, and take a look how she frames this, right? I don't know where you stand here, but this is, I think, part of the problem in America.
You know exactly where I stand. Whenever I see her face, you know exactly where I stand. I can't stand this woman.
So if we got some Joy Reid fans, you already know Macho's not one of them. But if you are, welcome. But we're going to show how she portrays this situation and why I think it's a big problem in America because we frame everything in these kind of lens. So let's check it out. Let's get into this.
Whether armed, primarily white men can continue to take matters into their own hands and serve as judge, jury, and executioner legally under the law. There's the trial of teenage vigilante Kyle Rittenhouse, where jurors just moments ago broke for the day. And the trial of father and son Greg and Travis McMichael. And
I have to stop this, Savory. Sorry. Not sure if on my end here on the screen, I'm seeing AJS, University of Chicago Press, on the live screen here in YouTube. I don't know if anyone who is watching on YouTube, if that's what you see. Yeah, I'm seeing some University of Chicago Press here on the main screen.
Joy Reid, you're not seeing the Joy Reid?
For some reason, I'm not. I could be wrong.
Yeah. Felicia, help us out right here. Oh, she's not a fan of Joy.
She's not. So I could be.
Because I'm seeing.
Yeah. There's some reason. For some reason, on the live screen here, I'm watching it on YouTube on my computer, and I'm seeing it's a major distinction between the YouTube channel and the Restream channel here.
Oh, let's play it back.
Share the tab.
And let's try this again. Joy Reid, how about now?
Just give it a second. The YouTube live channel is a bit delayed.
But she can hear Joy.
You're a go.
Let's play it.
Accused of murdering 25-year-old Ahmaud Arbery in what many have called a modern-day lynching. The three men claimed that this was just a citizen's arrest gone wrong. Today, Arbery's mother had to witness horrifying autopsy images of her son. She walked out. The family's been receiving moral support from a number of faith leaders. Yesterday, the lawyer for Brian requested that Reverend Jesse...
So FYI, you see how this is all being framed, right? So we just want the listeners to know, whether you agree or disagree, we'll get into that. But this is all framed in the lens of sense of inequality, hinting towards racism and the unfairness in America. And they don't really want you thinking about the facts and actuality of the case, right? So when
it's just a diversion.
Yeah, it's just like, all right, but let's get into what happened. People are afraid to have these conversations because the real question is, let's talk about what happened, right? Because look, Joy, you might be right in some points. It might be, but can we talk about it? You don't want to talk about it because a lot of times it's more than meets the eye, right? It's not really about racism. It's not really about this sense of inequality. It's a contextual issue that you got to dissect according to the evidence that I don't like doing. So
correct. And Savory, just one other note, if you can, when you play the video, just mute your mic because it's double sounding.
cool.
That's it. Yeah.
Jackson be removed from the courtroom, just as they had done previously with the Reverend Al Sharpton.
Jesse Jackson, I believe is still here. He is, Your Honor, I think we all know, an icon in the civil rights movement. He, not just a witness to it,
So he's asking for Jesse Jackson to leave the courtroom.
Correct.
Right?
Because
But
he's
why?
a prolific person, he can persuade the jury. That could automatically put some kind of heart feels on the jury to say, well, Jesse Jackson's here in support of this family. And he, as a defense attorney, wants to do away with that because he doesn't want the jury to be tampered with or manipulated on his art. That's his argument. I'm not saying that that's the case.
Interesting.
personification of it. And in other circumstances, I think everybody would be happy to have their picture taken, maybe get an autograph. But in the context of this trial, we object to his presence in the public gallery inside the courtroom. I guess the next question is, which pastor is next? Is Raphael Warnock going to be the next person appearing this afternoon?
Yes.
Oh, the mind reels. The judge did.
Okay, I see what they're arguing. Because his presence can sway. But yeah, I'm not sure if I'm with him there because it's like, because you can. That's a tough one because you can make that argument for many different figures. Okay, you can just not sit in the courtroom now. I don't know. What you think about that? Do you think he should leave?
Yeah.
Why?
Because again, I
sway the jury. You think?
If you have prolific figures, like you had Maxine Waters outside the courthouse with Derek Chauvin case, these figures already can put something in you, right there. They know who you are. They see you, and now they can go out to the street and to the protesters and say, "This is the juror that was in here."
Yeah, and
these are
they represent something. They embody something in themselves already to the public eye, right? So that's a good point because you look at him, he already embodies that sense of what if you want to call racism and social justice. So you're automatically, even if a juror looks him up and see who's in there, if he don't know who he is, but he probably will, he knows the way he wants his trial to move.
Correct.
So yeah, that's interesting. I agree with that actually. All right, let's keep playing this clip to give people the full picture here. By the way, I just got to pause it, as Macho said last episode, because, it's, copyrights and all this stuff.
Yeah, we don't want to get flagged, guys.
The defense's request to remove the Reverend Jesse Jackson from the courtroom. Late this afternoon, the state rested its case against the three men. Now comes the defense's turn. Meanwhile, in Kenosha, Wisconsin, the jury in the Rittenhouse case had been deliberating since this morning. Rittenhouse shot and killed 36-year-old Joseph Rosenbaum and 26-year-old Anthony Huber. He also shot Gage Grosskreutz, nearly severing his right arm. Rittenhouse has pleaded not guilty, claiming self-defense. The prosecution argued that Rittenhouse was a chaos terrorist who lied about what happened that night and provoked the initial interaction with Rosenbaum, which set in motion.
How many people don't watch the case? I watched the two closing arguments and it showed me a lot. But most people are not honest enough to really flesh out what's happening. And then she's making a shortcut argument, right? This is what I'm going to call this now. You make a shortcut argument. When everybody comes to you and their first idea is racism and discrimination, you're taking a shortcut and dismissing a lot of things in betweens, right? Like we're going to show a clip later, so stay tuned on how you really dissect data and how you really come to conclusions. Right now, these political
or manipulated,
or exactly, and many or manipulated, but they come to this conclusion based on how they see the world. So if you talk to somebody on why something happened and they look at the worldview through racism, what's going to happen? They're going to first think about if racism exists there, and if it doesn't, they're still going to fit it. That's the problem in our culture.
Unbelievable.
Anyways, let's keep playing this clip.
To the chain of events that night in August of last year. Since then, Rittenhouse has become a right-wing hero. Mark and Patricia McCloskey, remember them? The St. Louis couple pardoned by Donald Trump when he was president for aiming guns at Black Lives Matter protesters. Well, they've showed up.
This is ridiculous, Avery. And the thing is why you're highlighting certain controversial situations that have a lot more to more layers to it, more to the story, more that meet to then, or as they say, more that meets the eye. Okay, you're gonna bring up these cases. Why? Because you want to agitate. You want to make them angry. You want to make progressives angry. You want to make BLM angry. You want to make them angry. Why? So there will be riots. There will be bloodshed. I'm gonna keep bringing this up. This is how they work.
Yeah,
This is what they. This is how I'm not gonna stop. I won't relent. This is not love. This is not love. Do you think this is love, Savory?
No, but look at their points, right? They're triggering people to think a certain way. They use Trump, right? They use Trump as a keyword, and then they say the couple who was pointing at Black Lives Matter. They don't tell you the context of anything because they don't want you to know the context. They just want you to know their narrative. This is crazy. This is why this is a great clip. And I'm glad people are watching this before we move to the next clip, because you can see both sides of how these madness works in this country. So check this. So this is the last 30 seconds here. You can see how she paints this narrative. Then we'll get into some more combo.
For the past 2 days to support Rittenhouse. They claimed that the teenager, who, mind you, shot and killed 2 people, is the real victim, the victim of cancel culture. And another weird twist, Rittenhouse actually participated in choosing the final 12 men and women who will decide his fate by pulling numbers from a tumbler, like a macabre game show. The 6 he randomly chose become alternates. Here's what that looked like.
You know this happens in court. This is not the first time this is done.
No, it's not. It is, and I will highlight that it is a bit unusual to do this, especially for a major case. But this judge has said that he has done this for 25 years. So again, another detail that she's leaving out. He's been doing this. Okay, he's been practicing this.
But not only that,
they're
doing this randomly, right? Like even if you do it a different way, it will be the same thing. What is he shouldn't at all? It's not, unless you think it's rigged, right? Then you make an argument on that. But if it's not him, somebody's gonna pick up a box. Even if the judge picks, like, those are details that they want to manipulate you into the narrative. This is why I'm like, but by the way, I've seen that though. You know what I'm saying? So it's not the norm, but I've seen that. I don't know if it was the lawyer who picked from it. It might have been the lawyer, not the actual defendant. So I don't know. But the point is, she's painting a whole narrative on this too.
Of course.
And the bailiff will rotate it, and then the defendant will draw out 6 of the numbers. Members of the jury, it is for you to determine whether the defendant is guilty or not guilty of each of the offenses charged.
Now, there was a very real possibility that he would face an all-white jury, but after that drawing, 4 white men, 1 black.
Okay, I just want to highlight a point here because I'm watching also on YouTube live. I do want to tell the audience that we apologize for any hiccups in the broadcast here. This is not our fault. This is just a bandwidth issue, and we'll definitely figure this out tomorrow for tomorrow's live.
There's a big lag.
But yeah, it is. It's a slight lag here. I'm seeing here on YouTube, but just be patient with us, and just bear with us as we're growing our content here and trying to work this stuff out. But basically, what just happened there is she's trying to make the illustration that now look at this. Now you have 7 white women, 4 white men, and 1 black man as a result of this random selection. It's random. So how would he know what he picked? You know what I'm saying? So it's like, what are you trying to say? Again, this goes back to the agitation. This is what her job is to do. If she agitates a particular group, they're going to watch her. They're going to give her views. They're going to raise her ratings. And she's going to get fat and rich off of it. Period.
And then you think about the country is about 65% white already, right? So in any setting you're in, you take that into account from 65, nearly 70% white. So you take that into account in this country. You can't attribute every kind of situation where there's more white people as racism, right? Like here, you have no evidence, you have no proof, you just have a random selection that because there's one black man is racist. It's like you can't assume if a company has 10 black hires and then 90 white ones, you can't really assume racism, right? You have to look deeper into what's happening here. This happens to be crazy because it's super random, right? The company one has more merit because you can argue why they got hired and you could look at the specifics. But again, we try to paint everything through the lens we look at the world. And the media is convincing us to look at the world through the lens of racism and a sense of inequality. And I think that's a big problem in America. So yeah, and yeah, we need to really challenge them. The reason we want to challenge that for the viewers and people watching is because you are not only not helping yourself, but you're hurting the country because the issues become more complex when you look deeper into it.
Do we know what the jury looked like before a comment came in?
No, they selected a jury before?
They had a whole
original batch.
The jury has been going through a series of changes because they had 20 jurors, with alternates, and some of them had made statements in court, and they had to remove.
Yeah. Over time, it's always less. They do that, yeah. But
that's a great question. We don't know.
Before, no.
We don't know because again, we're not supposed to see them because they need to be protected. So again, when you have a prolific person like Jesse Jackson, who is on the front lines of these protests, the last thing you want is for that man to know what the jury looks like.
Facts. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That's why I'm saying you cannot have these people in there. Again, the parent is going to be there because it's their child that was killed. Their child was the victim, or their partner is going to be there. And if you want, you can get word from them. Why do you have to be there? It reminds me of like here's what it reminds me of, Savory. Imagine a person snitching on the mob, okay? And now that mobster, that leader is sitting in court. That's intimidation.
Yeah,
that could tamper how evidence is presented. That can tamper how a jury looks at these things. That can make you it's fear-mongering in some way.
Yeah, because the goal is to keep the case and jury as neutral as possible, because they also tell you don't watch the news, right? That's part of the deal. You don't watch the news, you don't pay attention because people get swayed and they're aware of that. So your responsibility as sitting as a jury, you have to really do your best to be neutral. So they try to pick the top neutral piece. So everyone they're picking is supposed to be a good pick, and they try to pick it at random. At least people who don't have bias. That's how they bait them out, So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So that was Joy Reid. That was an interesting clip.
She also made the connection between how the 17-year-old boy in Wisconsin, Kyle Rittenhouse, is glamorized versus the 17-year-old boy who was killed in Trayvon Martin by a Zimmerman in the Zimmerman case. Yeah. So she's saying he was demonized. Kyle Rittenhouse is glamorized, and the distinction of that is the black and white thing. And again, here we go.
Shortcut.
In terms of
shortcut again.
And that's very sad.
Yeah, and that's a great point. Because that's a shortcut you're taking, and you're dismissing your issue, and then in turn, you never get to the solution. You see,
exactly. When
it's
not supposed to be. It's not supposed to get to the solution.
And then let me go off what you said before we move, because that was really good. You mentioned because so people can get an understanding where we're coming from. It's not that you never talk about these things, right? But you're fixating your focus on that, right? That's race without any kind of clue and evidence. It's only because you have buzzwords like systemic racism. You have these ideologies that tell you that we are oppressed to a level that we can't imagine or understand. So it's easy to trace everything back to that. But in reality, let's challenge that, because that's not the case. Sometimes there's evidence that shows, hey, let's be honest, this had nothing to do with race. It could have, But in this case, it didn't. But we don't like to have those conversations.
And
So,
that's what this show is all about. Two liberty-loving Latinos who are going to push back against this narrative and is going to expose these things. We're going to expose it in history. We're going to expose it in our current events. We're going to expose it as we look forward. We're going to keep exposing it because it's agitating and dividing our country, and
Facts.
we have to expose that.
So before we move to this next section, what you drinking, Macho? I don't know what you're drinking.
I'm drinking black coffee today.
Oh, black coffee. I got this coconut. It's fake coconut, mad sugary, but we out here.
The stuff you drink, brother.
I'm always drinking random. Yeah, I don't know, man. But anyways, let us know what you're drinking. Join us at Drinks to the Nobody. I'm wondering what y'all drinking.
Are you still on TikTok Live?
Herrera, Latinos, because you didn't vote for Biden. Y'all ain't black. All right. Anyways, don't get me started, man.
Hey, right. Herrera, thanks for joining. I appreciate you
joining us again. We appreciate you, bro. Let's move to our next segment. So we got the first time we're playing the one and only. Show them your shirt, Macho. Who we about to show right now?
Mr. Baritone.
We got Mr. Baritone himself. Mr. Baritone himself. So if y'all haven't heard of him, I don't blame y'all. That's on purpose. And if you have heard of him, congratulations. This man
got the cup too.
He's not a politician. He has no dogs in the fight, but he is a professor. He is an economist and a true person who's been researching these topics for days. Now we're getting into
not just a professor, Savory. He's a tenured. He's at the Hoover Institution.
Yeah. Does he have a Nobel Prize? Like Milton Freeman?
Oh, no. He does not. No, he deserves one.
Well, Milton Freeman's like his mentor, too. But nonetheless, we're getting into today racism and equality. And we showed you a clip from Joy Reid. All right. So you can see how they paint these narratives on both sides. Now we're going to show you a clip. Again, this is not politics. This is how you break down data. And it's not about only breaking down data, because not everybody has time to do that, but at least to think more critically and deeper into the situation. Here, they talk about the race and gender gaps, and look at the response that Thomas Sowell gives.
Economics of job.
And when was this, Savory? I'm sorry. When was this? This was in the 80s, 70s or 80s. This argument has been around for the last 30, 40, 50 years, guys. And we're still talking about the race and inequality race gap. You think people weren't listening before? People were talking about this. And here we are. We had a man who was looking into this data and studying this data and being the naysayer in that time when the Black Panther movement was going, where you had all these prolific voices, the brotherhoods, the Black brotherhoods, the armed militias. They were all existed at that time. The Malcolm X. All were around. Come on. He was pushing back against the narrative. And here's what he had to say, Savory.
These things have always taken place. These stats have always, this is how you manipulate them. Before we play, I want to read this to you because it's interesting, but I agree with this. Felicia said, I think the media made Cal such a demonized figure that the people who felt he was innocent went all in calling him a hero. That's what the media does. The media is turning people more. Yeah, and I agree with that in a way, which is pretty interesting. Anyways, let's
making it polarized. Yeah.
The blacks versus the whites. The statistics I was able to pull together indicate that at the present time, white males make $17,427 on an average basis for the year. Black males make $12,738. White females make $10,244, and black females make $9,476. It is clear.
So she's breaking down all the facts and saying it is clear. It is clear that there's a wage gap. And check the response here, how you break down data.
From these figures, as indeed I think it's clear to most of us from what we see, that there is a discrimination against blacks and against women in our present system. Since not all blacks will be superior, how would you try to even that out so that there would be some equality of job opportunities?
I'm sorry you missed the earlier part of the program when I pointed out that where you find people not represented evenly, that does not show the institutional effect, because almost nowhere in human affairs do you find people evenly represented.
Well,
If you compare comparable people.
Mm-hmm.
All right. We're gonna finish this. We ain't done. We ain't done.
Explain in your point of view, from the inner city point of view. You're from the hood. What did you just hear him say out of his mouth?
So look, there's nowhere in the world that equality in the way politicians talk about it exists. Right? And not only that, there's no way in the world that you can accomplish that kind of equality without a sense of control over people's lives. That's what this reminds me of. So we grew up in the hood. We might have had a short end of the stick in certain areas or not, but why focus on that and not on the opportunities that we now have moving forward, right? It's not equality of what's in front of you, like, oh, this person had $10. His mom used to give him 10. My mom only gave me 2. That's inequality. Yeah, that's life, brother, right? But equality should be measured. How much money can we go out and get? Can we both get the same job? Can we both go out and work? Can we both go study? Can we both? Yes. People don't like to talk about that reality, and he's going to break some of that down. But yeah, you go ahead. What do you think before we keep playing this?
Well, from my inner city, my deplorable mindset, where I'm from, where I grew up at, what I'm hearing is he's saying nowhere in society, nowhere in the world where people are equally in the same positions or in the same places or exist in the same rooms, right?
Good
because
point.
everyone, everyone has different altitudes, meaning like certain people are good at things, certain people have different behaviors, certain people have, different niches, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes it could be cultural, and sometimes it could be genderized, right? You had higher percentages of males doing certain jobs. You have higher percentages of women doing certain jobs. Whatever it may be, there are other layers to explain these distinctions.
Facts.
Rather than simply make it, no pun intended, black and white.
Exactly. And now he gets into some of these layers that you're talking about. So let's keep playing this. Perfect transition.
With respect to age, with respect to education, etc., you get a totally different picture, both with respect to blacks and women. Now, the figures I saw, for example, show more recently that if you take black families where the husband and wife are both college educated and compare them to the white family where the husband and wife are both college educated, the black family is now earning $2,000 a year more. The problem is that very few blacks fall in that category. That when you compare category for category, then we're talking about getting people a decent education. I'm saying that you cannot say that the numbers collected at the employer's place of business reflect simply the employer's policies. Those numbers reflect underlying conditions in the whole society, just as numbers collected at a hospital do not show you that people are sick because they're in the hospital.
No, I would agree with that, but
you see?
So, I would agree, but I always like the I would agree, but I would agree. Yes, you're right, but if I'm right, I'm right.
Let's see. By the way, do I have an echo still when I play the video?
Yeah. Only because if you can in the studio here, you can mute your mic, not the physical mic, but the mic on the broadcast.
So that's easier to do. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But you would also have to agree that, generally speaking, women are paid less, for example, for the same jobs as men.
No, I would not. I would not agree with that. If you're talking about women with the same number of years of experience, with the same continuous service, et cetera, then when I look at that, I don't find that disparity. I find, for example, in many cases, the women are making more, depending upon how you break the data down. The difference with women is between married women and everybody else. That's the real difference.
Yeah, see, again, and here's another thing, say, that I learned from this man was when we look at statistics, right, we have to understand what we're asking, how we're asking those things, because statistics only reveal perspective. Your perspective versus my perspective are going to be different based on what we're asking. So the algorithms are going to spit out certain statistics based on what we're asking. Now, if we're asking based on what he's saying, married women versus unmarried women with children, right? He makes these distinctions very clearly because, again, it expresses different circumstances. If you're unmarried with children, your life is going to be a little bit harder, difficult. You may not be able to go to work as often as a married woman with children who is sharing the responsibilities with a partner. Agreed?
100%. You couldn't have said that better. Is because look, we have statistics, right? And in those statistics, if we say we always have to dig deeper. Let me give you an example. If we have a statistics of um, what part of New York City, what population in New York City, according to the 5 boroughs, commit more crime, right? We can't just say these people here commit more crime and then come to a conclusion that says, oh, it's because they're black, right? Like life doesn't work like we got to say, wow, this is how honest research is done. Oh, wait, they commit the most crime. Wonder why. Now let's split the data. Who's in the home? Do they have jobs? What is the government doing? You see,
And
now you get an
Savory, you brought up
result to that.
Savory, you brought up a great example, and I can we explore that a bit here?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Basically, when you look at those statistics, there is immediate action and then there's long-term action. To deal with crime, what is the immediate action? What is the immediate response to deal with crime?
Police.
That's right, right? So they're gonna deploy more police officers to these high crime areas so that they can deal with it immediately, and then politicians do what the hell they want when they deal with it long term. Okay, that's a long-term solution. When you look at it and says, okay, what are we going to do about the homes? What are we going to do about family structure? What are we going to do about poverty? Those are long-term solutions. Right now, for example, Eric Adams got his hands tied because now you got the gang BLM is going to turn around and say, no, we don't want more police. He says, no, I need to deal with high crime. Why? Because other neighboring minorities are affected by some of these high crimes, these heavy crimes.
Yeah, because and again, what happens is you box yourself in, right? You box yourself in politically. You box yourself in with even being honest. You believe these data only goes as far as you want it to go. That's not how life works.
No,
ladies and gentlemen, life doesn't work like that, right? So if you're trying to figure something out, they teach you this in school. This is 101. You can't write a paper and just say, "Oh, the wage gap exists. Men make more than women," and you get 100. No, they're gonna explain why. Where do you research that? Let's go a little deeper. You know what I'm saying? So,
and are you aware? And are you aware of the contraring opinion? Are you aware of the contraring of facts? Because when I hear people on TikTok debate, are you aware of what the other side is saying? Do you understand it? Have you embraced it? And are you saying I'm contradicting that with these set of facts only because what is the middle ground here? No, what we have is polarization in our debates, polarization in our media, polarization in our universities. Why? Because everyone wants to take a stand and stay on there and go, no, socialism works. American values is a racist value. There's systemic racism. Blacks are oppressed. But there are many black people in America that will tell you, I'm not oppressed. So are you wrestling with the contraring opinion? That's why I don't get it, Saber.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point. And let's see how he continues to break this data since it's so relevant to the points we're making. That's good points.
Well, even as to single women, the Census Bureau statistics, the most recent ones I could find, 1978, say that single men are earning $11,100 and single women are earning $9,300.
Yes, I love the word single that is used. When I did my study, I didn't use single, I used never married. You see, a woman who is single at age 40, having spent 10 or 20 years raising children, is really not quite the same as a man of age 40 who's been working continuously for 20 years.
And the difference is not that
point.
Great, so it could easily be accounted for by the
Yes, because when I break them down the other way, I did this for the academic world, and there I found the women who are never married, which is the term the way I take it. There they were earning.
You see the distinctions there? There's distinctions between how we break down this data, right? We have two ways to look at to look at this data, right? Because even the logistics of how you're wording this is important, right? Because single could mean single at any age, but never married has a connotation to it. Why? Because you've been in the workforce all those years.
Right. And never married could also indicate, okay, what else? It could indicate never married with children or never
Mhm.
married without children. So if you're gonna ask certain questions, if you're gonna ask this crystal ball, the crystal ball is gonna answer it directly based on stats or data it has to support that question. But if we continue digging deeper, looking at contraring opinion, looking at other layers, we can get a more broader perspective and say, okay, there are a lot more to this that meets the eye. And again, no pun intended, these are not black and white issues.
And that's facts. Let's finish. I don't think they're gonna copyright for these videos, but it's usually the CNNs and those out of the world. So let's finish this right quick.
More than the men. And similarly, when the government did data some years ago on women who had been working continuously since high school into their 30s, there you found that they were making slightly more than men of the same description. So the difference is between married women and everybody else. And married men get an extra bonus because their wives take care of many things that enable them to put more time into their careers.
I'm sure you're aware of the fact that there are approximately 15% of all homes in which there is only one wage earner. So that when you talk about women being able to take care of things for their married mate wage earner, the fact is that in the overwhelming majority of American homes, the women also work. And therefore, I don't think your explanation that women have other responsibilities and that's why they are...
Work can mean part-time work or full-time work. Women do.
I mean, how smart is this man, Savory? This is common sense 101. You know what I'm saying? Your mic is muted, just a heads up.
Oh, I got real passionate right here. I said, you see how there's many ways to slice the data? Because when you're an economist and you're honest about these topics and you're not a politician, you're not really trying to get, you're going where the data leads you, and you're digging deeper to justify what you believe that came from the data and how you explain that. He's just explaining the data. It's how journalism should be done. Give me the story. Don't explain the conclusion to the story. Let me decide and do my research further if I need to. Same thing This man is doing. But politicians don't do this. So he just, you see the different layers that he broke down? He said, oh, but the women are workers. Well then, oh yeah, you're right. But are they part-time or full-time workers? Right? Is that no difference? Are we going to pretend these layers don't matter? The layers matter. Like Macho said, this is not black and white. And when we stop looking at it like that, you actually get to the racism if it is there in an honest way. If it's there, you actually, oddly enough, you get to it. But if it's not there, face the reality. And let's talk about the actual problems that can fix our communities and not just throw words like gender wage gap. Let's say wage gap and see what the problem is. All right. So yeah, we got a comment here. Pretty long. This is from Twitch. So those of y'all who are on YouTube are not seeing this. I think there's a fair argument to be made that ego bias plays a role in inaccuracy and often stupidity. People don't like to be wrong. So when you comfort someone in a debate, I like this comment, by the way, just in chatter with the upfront intent of winning, you're automatically setting yourself as an opposing force that should be contended, not conversed with, and you often don't get anywhere. This is a great comment. I agree with that, by the way. That's the problem in our culture, where we are not really having honest debates, but we are just getting to our conclusion and pushing our points down. So when we go talk about these heavy controversial topics, we need to be really careful about the context we set it up, that we can have a common goal of truth and not me versus you shit throwing contests. Yeah, I agree with that 100%. But again, politicians will never, ever approach it that way. Why? Because they're approaching it in a way to either get a certain vote or get a certain perspective or win people over. Right? You can't just show the data as a politician and say, hey, this is the data, guys. Let's see what we could do. You have to say, this is the data, and this is the person who's at fault. This is the data, and this is the person this is who we need to tax. This is who we need to person. This is who's oppressed. You have to paint it like that to sell yourself, So, yeah, what you think on that, Macho?
I think also the reason why people take a stand is because, again, you're not battling points. You're not arguing what's actually happening. You're arguing against someone's identity, and that's huge. You're not going to tear that apart from someone, right?
But why are you arguing against people's identity is the question I have now, because you shouldn't have political ideas as your identity, because that means that is who you are and you never would change it. Your identity should be much bigger than politics.
Exactly.
You know, so yeah.
And that's why I think I agree with that comment. But the solution to that comment is almost utopian. Okay, like again, the reason why people take these stances in debates, why people are protesting, why people are so angry, why people are so hurt, is because they wrap their identity around these rationalizations, and it could be very dangerous. That's why extremists exist. That's why we have these things, because they say, well, the reason why we're poor is because of the color of our skin. Fight on. You know, and again, when you wrap it around your identity, you're not going to tear that from that person, because if you tear down their identity, Savory, guess what happens? They melt in front of everyone, and you could potentially do more harm than good to that person.
Yeah. But instead of finding, they give you an identity. Julie said, unless it's done to a white person. But so this is the direction this country is going. And before we move on, let me say the direction this country is going is.
We're not laughing at you, Julia. it's just the reality.
No, it's the reality. Yeah, we're actually with you, because it's a sad reality, because the oppressed, oddly enough, are getting the power of voice and influence in this country, because they have an excuse or a mentality that they can kind of say everything. You know what I'm saying? And nothing really, no accountability for them. So that's a sad reality. All right. So that was our segment on nobody versus the experts. Let me put that up right quick.
That's right.
Usually we clown the experts, but this man, I'm personally not clowning, because I've learned a lot from him, and he's giving you the stats. Whether we agree or not, you can dig further and maybe see where he might have lacked or something. But this is not a politician. This is not agenda driven. This is a man who's made his entire career of giving you this kind of data for you to dissect yourself, right?
And also, Julie, I had a question here. I saw that you said that your feelings don't matter. Are you white? It doesn't matter to us, but I just wanted to, for reference, or I guess perspective, if that, just to understand my feelings don't matter comment. Sorry. Yeah, Savory, I wanted to, this last segment is really huge for me, because there's something I want to clarify here. It's a slight rant, and it's just a conversation between you and me, and talking about a really prolific time or a period of time that happened in our country that you and I are not deluded to, because every time we debate somebody, it always comes up. The Black Wall Street. Okay? So I've got some facts for y'all to sip on and to really chew on. And that is, when that
I talked to them, Macho. I had to. They had to see the sip on some facts.
No, it's all good. It's all good. Some things that I want us to really think about. First, before I want to premise this with this. What do you think when you think of Black Wall Street? What is the immediate thoughts that we hear in the mass group think, Savory? Do you want to comment on that?
When I think of Black Wall Street, I think of the Black community having tremendous success economically and just doing their own thing to, prosper forward. Or are you saying what they tell us about Black Wall Street?
What did they tell you? What is the first thoughts that you heard about it?
They teared it down. The country teared it down. The white people in this country, or the government institutions, didn't let them win. They didn't want Black Wall Street to win, in other terms.
Right. Blacks were becoming too powerful, so they needed to destroy them. And God forbid if that happens, because they will overtake us, right?
Correct.
This was a result of white supremacy. Okay, now without getting into the specifics of the story of what actually transpired, but I'm going to get into I'm going to say very quickly, this was government failure, number one. Okay. And what I mean by that is the governor of Oklahoma did not want to send a whistle to Washington stating, oh, we have an issue that we can't control. So it was his pride. Like, no, we got this. We can handle this. Right. And secondly, you had race baiters, and I'm going to connect that. So let's first start with the government failure. When the riot was erupting, Okay. You had officials literally signal out to the governor, hey, we need the National Guard here. This might turn out to be a big issue. There are powerful people here because Black Wall Street was big. They were huge. All right. And you had the neighboring town next to them were also huge. Okay. And the neighboring town was white. So they didn't want a riot on their hands. They saw it. And the officials was like, look, can we get the National Guard here to keep the peace? The governor said no. All right. We have our people there. We have people in place. Let's leave them. We're okay. Then all of a sudden, what happened was, according to an affidavit, a sworn affidavit by a black sheriff called Barney Cleaver. His name was Barney Cleaver. He said in his affidavit that there was an armed militia group that responded to the courthouse where the young man was in, because again, the white people were protesting in front of the courthouse and were arguing to get into the courthouse. Why? Because in those days, obviously with racism, they wanted to kill the boy that sexually assaulted or apparently or may have allegedly sexually assaulted someone in the elevator, correct? We could agree. We could have a meeting of the minds. That was heinous, right? That was a miscarriage of justice. But they were not armed. That's number one. According to the sworn affidavit by the sheriff, the white group was not armed. It was when the African Black Brotherhood arrived in hundreds, they were armed. Okay? When they responded there with their...
Prior to that, hold up, so we can make sure we're having a conversation and I'm listening and keeping up with you. So prior to that, they weren't armed, you're saying?
Who wasn't armed?
You're saying in the situation, could you describing the conflict of the blacks and the whites there, right?
Yeah, the white group was not armed.
Was not armed.
Was not armed.
The black group wasn't armed either.
The black group was armed.
All right, keep going. I'm with you now. All right.
So imagine a group coming with their guns, okay? And when they responded there with their guns, and you know what? Let's validate for the sake of the argument. Maybe they had every right to bring their guns because again they were smaller in number, right? But what did this do? Well, this incited the idea that if you guys got your guns, we're gonna get ours. Okay. So the white group, the white mob, went back, grabbed their guns. According to the sheriff, they grabbed their guns. They came back. He says that a shot went off. He says he don't know who fired the first shot. He noticed that the two men were wrestling with each other. White and black guy were wrestling with each other, and a shot went off. Someone got shot. He doesn't know who fired the first shot. And for what was that? An all-out riot happened. Okay, you had sworn testimonies, and folks, if anyone asks you to fact check this, tell them to go to the Library of Congress. There was a commission on this. They looked at this and they purposely withheld this from the public because they did not want the government. The government doesn't want to look like the people who are bringing the accountability to the front and center, because then they don't want the Black Caucus to blame them for racial disparities. Okay, but this right there in the Library of Congress, there's sworn affidavits, is written. Black members who lived in Black Wall Street said, and I quote, "It was because of those Negroes why my house burned down." Okay, now here's what I want to say.
Interesting.
Here's what I want to say for people to wrestle with, and this is it right here. They know the Negroes didn't burn their house down. They're not stupid. They know who burned their house down. Why do you think they're blaming the Negroes? They're blaming them because you started this. And when you started this, guess where they went when they were taking cover, when they were all taking shots at each other? They ran into their community. They went and hid there. So what did you think they were going to do? They were going to stop this firefight? Oh, no, we're not going to the territory. No, you want to go in there? You're with them? Oh, now we got an all-out war. I'm not saying it's right, Savory.
Yeah. So
all I'm saying is, yeah.
No, that's good. It's just more than meets the eye. You're describing the Black Wall Street story of how that, or that whole conflict came to be about government, the white people, the black people. Yeah, it's more than meet the eye. Yeah. And I think that's worth an episode for us to dissect, because we can talk about that and the Jim Crow. So you just made me think of this for the audience to see. If we can have an episode, we do our 3 segments of the mind your business, nobody versus the experts, sip on some facts. If we do those three in relation to
I got more to the
Black Wall
story.
Street would be great. But keep going. Yeah. I think it's good.
And here's another thing. And again, if anyone who is listening right now, put in our comment section, say, hey, I want an episode on this. I want you to go deeper into this because I don't agree with you or I agree with you, but I want people to see the facts. I will. I promise you guys, it was a vicious cycle of a circle, a ring around the rosy, just to get to this, just to see these affidavits, just to see these testimony, because they don't want to make it public, because they don't want, the government doesn't want to look like they're the ones charging the black community with fault. So they rather just go with the narrative, keep the peace, blame the whites. It's okay, blame the whites. All right.
Yeah.
It's easy to blame the whites because now if we blame them, the people will know we're not racist. You get what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah. And there's
so what happened was,
do a breakdown to this for sure. No, go ahead. I'm just saying, the more you're thinking, I got questions in my head. I know a lot of people who might be watching.
Tell me one of your questions.
So no, I'm just curious I'll throw you one because for the sake of time, but I'm curious to see. Even before that, I want to learn more because I have the big picture of Black Wall Street, but I want to know before that what was happening, right? When you look at down in Jim Crow and those effects, I want to what caused that in the beginning, right? Because you kind of moved forward, leader, right? You kind of moved forward to the situation in the elevator that everybody knows about, right? I wonder how the tension was before then on the ground, what the government. Like what kind of freedoms they had. These are the questions that come to my mind, and it'll be cool to break it down to people, do a timeline to them,
Very briefly, I will surmise this with this. Prior to this incident, the whites and the blacks had an agreement on where things stood. Okay. The whites had their own neighborhood, and the blacks had their own neighborhood. Okay, and they would share business with each other. They were separated by a highway, which is why now they're saying highways are racist. But they were separated. They lived in an industrial area, and they would do commerce. They would exchange business with each other. They had no problems. I'm not saying they didn't have their prejudices. I'm not saying that they didn't have their racist comments. Maybe they said stuff. Maybe they did. But the point of the matter is there was an understanding between both groups, and they didn't bother each other. For the most part, until what happened is 2 weeks prior to this incident. 2 weeks. Guess who was in Oklahoma, right there in the Black Wall Street?
Who?
W.E.D. Du Bois.
My guy, Du Bois.
That's where he was. And if you know anything about Du Bois, he is a agitator. He is a journalist, guys. This is why we're talking about journalism. This is why we're talking about this stuff, because there's power in journalism. You can see the propaganda that you can spill over words on paper is insane. Until this day,
I thought this was an activist kind of guy. Okay,
he was a journalist. Yeah, he was a journalist. He was very critical of Booker T. Washington. Very critical.
Yeah, no.
He was a very good friend with Margaret Staggart. If anyone knows who that woman is, she's the one that started. She's the mother of abortion clinics. They created the eugenicist project, and look how that turned out in Germany. Yeah, and you had Frederick Douglass, who all of them were in cahoots with each other. Cyril Briggs, who was the leader of the African Blood Brotherhood. Now, there's no coincidence why that group was down there. How were they down there in the first place? The African Blood Brotherhood was not originally in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Why were they there?
Yeah,
they didn't live there. And this is what I'm trying to tell y'all. This was agitated. This was created. There was this newspaper that was perpetuated called the Morning Star. Okay, and then you had the Tulsa Black newspaper as well. They were in cahoots with each other. They were spewing out this language. They were already building up to this war, I call it, this conflict, this riot. I don't call it a race riot. I call it a riot. They wanted this because why? They wanted to charge the federal government. You know who was the president at that time?
Who?
I believe it was Taft. He was the president in 1921. And again, the black people did not feel that Taft was adequate enough to deal with some of the racial disparities in society. So what do? They're doing what BLM is doing. There will be riots. There will be fires. and there will be bloodshed. Folks, this is not new. This is why I'm saying what I'm saying today. And I want y'all to sip on some facts because I want y'all to look at this. There are more to the story. There is more that meets the eye. Look at the newspapers. Look at those days. I read them. I couldn't read them clearly as like fine print because they're on the computer. That you have to like zoom in, and you would see some of the narratives in which the Frederick Douglass of the world, W.E. Du Bois, Cyril Briggs, who was also a journalist, who was in cahoots with Marcus Garvey. Guys, this is hateful stuff.
Yo, guys, if you want to continue hearing about these fun, dope facts that Macho's sharing, let us know on the comments, right? Even after we're done here, because he just made me think about both of us planning an episode on that Jim Crow, Black Wall Street, because, you know, you got a lot of stuff that I just learned about, and I got the other area that I've known about with Jim Crow and the success of entrepreneurship and how we can bring that home of the ups and downs. So I think that would be a great episode, man. But I just learned the whole area. I kind of want to get into it. Yeah.
Felicia said highways is racist is a real thing right now. Question mark. I thought that was a joke. Me too.
yeah, it's a real thing right now, actually. And they, you know, and they justify it by things that Macho said that two communities were separated by a highway. And they give you no context and they don't allow you to think further. And then they just say, hey, it's racism. And again, like we said today, that's a beautiful last thought here as we're ending this is, look, not everything is what meets the eye, right? On that last comment that Macho Man from Felicia was, look, they separate a highway, and if you want to say it's just racism and have a lazy argument, that just won't get you far. It's not about criticizing you. That won't get you far. It's
There's no love in that.
Eye, man. Yeah, exactly.
There's no love in that. And here at Drinks for the Nobody, as we're closing, I want to leave you guys with some captions here as Savory is going to pull up here. Please share this channel. Share it with your friends. I want this channel to go on, light up on fire. Why? Because we're two liberty-loving Latinos who grew up in the inner city, who wants to scream at society in a more loving way. We're not going to demand riots. We're not going to demand bloodshed. We're not going to demand fire. And we're not brainwashed. We're not white supremacists. We're liberty-loving Latinos who believe in the American value system, who love what America has to offer. And we are Americans first, who love God and love God's people. We love God's people, and that's why we're doing what we're doing. Because we don't have to do this. This is free. We're not getting paid for this. And we're hoping that this can catch fire to a Drinks with a Nobody a community. We don't want a cult. We want a community. So, hey, please continue watching us at Drinks with a Nobody here on YouTube. And in case you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button. Click that notification bell. Follow us on Twitch if you can't watch us on YouTube. My username there is MachoFix88 and Savory_Addition. Follow us there as well.
Follow my man on TikTok, by the way. My man got banned from going live, man.
For hate speech, they said. What I'm talking about right now is hate speech.
Yeah, it's crazy. But let me give them the quick rundown there. Like Macho was saying, follow us on Twitch. We got MachoFix88. We got the same handles on Twitter. Follow us on TikTok, same handles. His account is still active. It's just a live situation we're trying to figure out. Instagram, we got a Drinks with a Nobody. We got a Discord. We haven't been pushing it as hard, but we're trying to build that community there. So feel free to join us there. We'll keep a tab on that. And again, for those of y'all here on YouTube, thank you for joining us at Drinks with a Nobody. Hit that subscribe button. Hit that notification bell, so you don't miss a beat when we go live. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Much love to you guys. I think you guys are awesome. Thank you, Felicia. Appreciate you for joining us. Hopefully you continue to grow with us over the time, you know? So take care. Much love.
Share this.
Bye-bye.
Cheers.